I mean, I don't even know, where am I supposed to be?
That's good. You could take a step that way.
That way? Is
You're
that,
live.
I'm live right now?
Live right now.
So people can see me and hear me.
Now they can see you and hear you.
Now they can see me and hear me right now. Okay, so I guess we're going to go ahead and do this.
Yeah, we're going to do it.
Okay then, well let's do it then. All right, morning everybody. Today we have been asked to do the load boost and bench top test on CTs with a 7 series with a load box so that we can demonstrate that, what you do if you show up and there's no load at a site and you still want to test those CTs, or if you have some CTs that have come in and you want to just go ahead and bench top test them so that you can green tag them and put them on the shelf and know that they're ready to go and they're good to go. We're going to show you how to do that as well. So we're going to do the bench top test, and we're also going to do a load boost test. And we're going to try and really concentrate on the connections, because that's what we were told it was a little bit hard to see last time. So that's when I was even more stumbly bumbly than I am now. So we will make sure we get it where you can see the connections really well. We'll take our time with the connections, okay? Looking at the upcoming schedule, we're doing load boost today, and then we have no webinars for the 5th, 12th, or 19th. And then we, after that, JP?
Yeah.
Okay, then we start back in after that. And we will start then with a new site, starting in with a new site. So please send in your suggestions. Is there any way you could maybe send out the options that are left?
Yes,
Beautiful,
take care of that.
beautiful. So JP is going to send out the options of what we have left to show. Please vote, and we'll let you guys choose which one we show next time when we start up after the 19th. Okay, so that would be the 26th. So when we start up the 26th, we will go with whatever you guys send in the most votes for. So he's going to send out the choices, and we'll go that route. Okay, cool. So today we're going to go over the connections, how to connect up at the meter site if you're going to do a load boost test. We're going to also go over a bench top test. We're going to run the test and take a look at the results and all that. But I think you guys have really keyed in on it. It's mainly about the connections. It's just getting it in your head, the flow of things and which way things are going, because now you're driving current through there, and it's just getting all that down. And it is different between the load boost test and the bench top test, and you got to think a little bit on it's about the flow, and we always talk about that. Like, remember that in the white, out the black. It's going to be key here in just a second. So for us, when we're reading the current on that secondary side, it's always in the white and out the black. Okay, so we're going to do that. We're definitely going to be talking about that here in a minute. It's key for us on the bench top test, all right? This has been a crazy interesting time for me. I'm at an age where I feel like I'm 900 years old these days. All the changes are happening so fast in our world. But for me, I'm at an age too where I've got a lot of friends, and I've made a lot of friends in these 8 years, and just other friends I've had before this. With all the medical issues, and lost friends, have friends that have lost friends and parents and children, just all of it. I mean, I've known the whole gamut in the family. I've known of people that haven't made it, and right now we've got a real friend of the Powermetrix family whose parents are really struggling really hard with it right now. And John's parents are they're fighting and they're struggling, and they are on ventilators, and they're fighting up there in Illinois. So we're definitely going to pray for John's parents this morning. And I mean, it's just really tough. I mean, I know this sounds kind of crazy, but you know, we're not God, and we don't know why things are going on here. We're not even close to God. So, you know, I know that there's a reason that we're going to see why a lot of this is happening, you know, in heaven. And I can tell you one thing: a lot of people are praying. And I haven't had a single person yet that I've asked, them, hey, and when they told me something, do you want me to pray for them? I haven't had a person yet tell me, no, I'm okay with that. Instead, I tell you what I get a lot of, especially with men, is I get this right here. Sure, man, I'd appreciate that. They take their hats off immediately, ready to pray. So we're going to pray right now, and it's we're going to lift up John's parents. We're going to lift up all those folks that are suffering right now, and we're just going to lift this country up. So let's go ahead and pray right now, and then we'll get into things, okay? Father, these are the times in our lives where we have loved ones that are struggling health-wise, that it's hard for us to see beyond just their mom, their dad, and they're hurting, and they're my mom, and they're my dad, and I don't really see much past that. So, Father, John's struggling with that right now, and I have other people that are fighting and struggling right now as well. And I'd also like to lift Larry up. He's fighting and struggling with his cancer, and so he's had a flare back up with it. And so just all of these medical issues are just, Father, it's very, 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 very tough on us. We don't feel like we have a lot of control. Don't think we can do much about it. It's all in the hands of other people, and we want to be able to do something to help ourselves or help our loved ones. We wish we could do something, but Father, this is the best I can do right now is pray to you right now. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to lift up those folks that are suffering right now. I'm going to lift our country up right now because, Lord, right now things just seem to be just so off tracks right now, and just everything just seems to be so helter-skelter and crazy right now. So, Lord, we lift up this country to you, and this country was founded on godly principles, so hopefully we can turn back to that, Father. And thank you so much for today, for the time to be able to share knowledge with folks. And most importantly, thank you for your Son. If he hadn't sacrificed himself on that cross, I couldn't even pray right now. So all of these things I ask and say according to the will of the one who paid it all, my brother, Jesus Christ. Amen. Good deal. Okay, so what we're talking about today is doing already missed the camera?
No, it's fine.
Okay, I felt my leg bump it. I tapped it. All right. What we're talking about today is we're talking about doing a load boost test, which you show up at a site and there's not enough load to do the test. And we know CTs do not like to be underloaded. They don't test well at all. Actually, according to ANSI, they have to have at least 10% loading on them. So a 400 to 5 has to have at least 40 amps on it for it to be a legitimate ANSI test. So if they're underloaded, they don't do us any good. So if you show up and they're underloaded, like I said, we've said in the past the number is 0.5. And the number we say is 0.5 secondary amps is because, remember, everything on our CTs is always to 5, 200 to 5, 400 to 5, 800 to 5. So if I'm getting 10% on the one side, I take 10% of the other side. So if I need 10% on that primary, if I need either 20 on a 200, 40 on a 400, 80 on an 800, then on that secondary side, every time is always 0.5, 0.5, and 0.5 because it's a tenth. So if I don't see at least 0.5 secondary amps, I'm thinking I'm going to have a tough time testing it, and I know that it doesn't meet the legitimate ANSI test. So if I don't have at least a half an amp there, I know I'm going to have trouble. Sometimes, and you've seen it in the videos, we've said thank you, Lord, and just grabbed up our stuff and gone on when we've got it with 0.2 or 0.3. But you can't count on that, and again, it's not really a legit test. So we have the load boost capability, which you can go out there in the field. We can use a drive cable. We can drive current through the CT, and when we drive that current through that CT, now we're bringing it up to where it needs to be a legit test. Okay, so we show up out there, and it's a 205, and it's got like 2 amps on it. Well, we know that's not going to work. Okay, so I need to have more than that. So that's what we're looking for, and we can do that, okay, with doing the load boost test. So I've got it set up behind me, and I'm going to go ahead and point things out right here. Put my gloves on, get legit here. And these are, you got to kind of keep track of what you're doing on these. It's all about the connections. I'll just be honest with you. It's all about the connections. You just got to get the connections right. And you just got to pay attention and kind of look and think about the flow. And that's why I've mentioned it so many times in the white out the black for us. And you're going to see here in a minute that that's very important when you get ready to do these tests. So you just remember it's in the white out the black coming into on the secondary side for us to read it. So let's look here. So what we've got is, let's look at my primary connections first. I guess I could ease around on this side, maybe. Yeah. Down half the stuff. So you can see what we've done over here. Here's my A-phase CT, okay? My dot is up top, okay? So that means that from what you've connected it up at the utility company, my current is coming in here, right? So my current is coming in here on the dot side, dot to the pot, right? So my transformer should be this way as far as upstream this way, so they're sending the current down, it's coming down through here. So remembering that, here is my drive cable, okay? It is labeled just like that. It's got drive on this end, the black end down here, and then on the white end right here, it's labeled return. So I got black and the white, drive and return. So what I want to do is, I don't care which way you thread it through or work it through that CT, I just need to know that this drive right here, where it says drive, so that means it's going to drive the current. So the current is going to come up and go through my flex, and it's going to go through and come in right where it's supposed to in the dot side of that CT, and then come back the return, and then make my return connection over here on here. This is where I use my 6 mil, right? My larger current cable. I've replaced my actual current cable with this larger 6 mil current cable that has these larger connectors on the end of it, all right, because I'm driving more current. So now I'm going to drive the current, but I have to always make sure I get the existing conductors through there. So you can see where I've got my flex wrapped around, and I've double wrapped it. I can. If you can double wrap, double wrap. We always say that, right? So here what I've done is I've double wrapped and I've gone around my drive cable and my existing conductors. Why? If there's something in there, but it's just not enough for us to get a legitimate test, I don't want to leave it ratio off. So if I have 2, 3, 4 amps in here, 5 amps in here, I don't want to leave that out and just pick up just my drive cable that I'm driving that 20 amps through there. I don't want to do that because now I'm going to be off. My ratio can't come out right if I'm missing that 3, 4, 5 amps over here, okay? So I have to get it around both. And remember, the flow works out because my drive cable, so I'm driving the current through here and it's coming through this side. So it's going the same exact way that my current's flowing here, and it's going both of them, my existing and my drive are going through here this way. My arrow is going that way to the right, the same direction that that's going, and that this is going now to the right. And then I go through here and I return back on that 6 mil cable. So that's A phase, my red phase, on that 6 mil connector, that 6 millimeter connector. I knew it. We'll put it back. So the 6 mil connector cable that we're using, A phase is going to be A phase is to drive with, so I use A phase on that to drive. Let me stick it up here to the side more. All right, and that blinked red again.
We're going to take just a quick break, y'all.
That could have been, that could be blooper material. You doing that and me tethered to you and you're sitting there loading batteries in there. And I'm trying not to get too far away from you to pull the thing loose. Let me get her back on there with these gloves on. There we go, cool. We're good?
We're good.
We're good, cool. Okay, so we drive, so I've got my 6 mil cable now, right? So I've got this larger cable now that I'm dealing with. On my, over here with my, on my current now, I have this cable right here, which is my 6 mil cable. And on this 6 mil cable, you can see I'm using A phase to drive, right? Here and here. B phase, I'm using to read. So I'm not using C phase, I'm just using A and B phases on my 6 mil that comes with the load boost kit, okay? So the A phase is for driving, B phase is over here to read with. So what I do is, and you can use alligator clips. I like these easy hooks because the weight of that cable when you're out in the field can sometimes pull down. And remember we talked about this, that tab on that test switch is angled like this upward. And if you go to put it on there with alligator clip and the weight of that cable, sometimes it minimizes your contact points to just a couple of points. So I've actually been out in the field before and I've had it where it wasn't working with the alligator clips. It wasn't making a good enough connection. When I changed and put those easy hooks on there, bam, it came right in. So from then on, I've used the easy hooks for this to do load boost. So I've got my easy hook easy hook connector over here on B phase. So my B phase, right, I am on, is that me bumping it and messing up?
The cable actually moved.
Ah, I did move the cable. Sorry about that. So here on B phase, right, my B phase connector on the cable, it's not connected on B phase. Right now we're testing A phase. So everything is A phase. So I have my drive, my A phase drive, right, is going through here. But my B phase, when I'm saying these A and B phases, I'm referencing just this 6 millimeter connector cable, right? The A phase on that cable is using to drive. B phase is coming over here to my A phase return. And on my A phase return right here, I've got to separate it top and bottom, right? I need an in and an out flow, but I'm not using alligator clips now because I've replaced them with this other cable right now. I'm using 6 millimeters, right? I'm not using the alligator clips anymore. So I have got to figure out a way to do it. And the way that I do it is I make a connection top, white, right, coming in to the green, black is the return, in the white, out the black, coming back, but I got to separate them. So I've just shoved an insulator separator in there. You can use, I've actually been out there before and used cards, folded up cards and shoved in there. Just get any type of those popsicle stick connectors and you can shove them in there. You just want to separate it. So now I've separated the top and bottom, okay, so I can get a flow in and out. Okay, my duckbill does that, but I'm not using duckbills, right? So I don't have a duckbill to shove in there and separate it. So right now, I've got to separate it some other way. So I put that in there, and I've just got me a little insulator stick I've shoved in there to separate. So now I've got in the white, out the black. So I'm using A phase on that 6 mil to drive with, and B phase I'm reading. So drive, and then I'm reading over here, all right? I've also, since we're doing a field simulation, I have connected up I've made my voltage connections here, okay? So you can see I'm red, yellow, blue right here, all right? And I've got my white over here. But you can see where it's, I got a little weight of that cable already, even pulling go over the edge of that desk. So that's why I like these to go with those, okay? Or I've also seen guys, so you know, a little field tip, they'll take a piece of a coat hanger, right? And they'll just wrap it around the cable back down here on this. They'll back up some on a little hook and they'll just hang it on the can and give themselves some strain relief on there. Okay, so that's another way to do it. Or you, like I said, you can use those easy hooks that just hook in there, okay, and then you don't care if it pulls on a little bit. All right, so you can see how I've got it connected up. I'm driving through here and I'm measuring right here, but I need my reference for my A phase voltage as a reference. You always need an A phase voltage reference. So I'm connected on my voltage. I went ahead and connected B and C as well, just like I'd be in the field. Okay? So this is simulating. I've replaced the duckbill with these two off the 6 mil. Then the other 6 mil A phase I'm using to drive, and then I'm just connected up normally with my voltages right here, right? Okay, so let's give it a shot. So, and of course, perfect time. All right. So here we go. So I'm on, I just set up a site called Boost Demo. So, so I got Boost Demo set up. So we're going to go down to number instrument transformer testing. And then you can see we've got the boost test, right? So we're going to do number 2. So at the very top right here, you just got to remember, we've got it highlighted for you if you're going to double wrap, and I've double wrapped, so we're going to have to check that double wrap box like we always know we got to do that. I'm going to leave the burden at 0.5. I'm going to go ahead and drive 20 amps because these are 200 to 5s. So if I just drive 20 amps through there the one time, then I'm at that 10%, so I'm good. If they were 400 to 5s, I would just loop it through twice, and that would give me the 40 amps. Okay, and I did only put one turn through there, but I did double wrap. So I got one turn going through, right? If I'd run it through more than one time, like twice for a 400, I would make that turns 2. Okay, and I could make the turns 2 now if I wanted to and just run it through there on a 200. It doesn't matter. But as long as I'm at least 10%. So I'm going to go ahead and hit start test. You notice at the bottom it always tells us, and we've talked about this 100 times, I've only got one flex that I'm using. And since I'm only using one flex, it's only just got the one solid green on A. It's just telling you with the open green circles, you're going to have to move it to B and then move it to C. And that's how you do this test. You just move it. This is testing A phase. When we get done with A phase, we just move everything over to B phase and then just test it again. So I'm going to go next. And I've got the probe on phase A. When it's always going to give you that when you only use one probe, it always gives you that screen where it says, you know, move probe to phase A and hit F6. And then when you're done with phase A, it's going to tell you move probe to phase B and hit F6. Goes through the normal checking everything. Once it tells you everything's cool, then you can go ahead and start the test. But until it checks everything and starts load box and does all that, it won't let you do it. So it said everything was okay and we could start test. And it gives us our pass. So we've got green's good, red is bad, right? So it says a green pass, so we're okay. It got 199.06, right? So primary amps, it's got in there. I left some on there, but you know, I put some through it. I put some through there, but there was already some going through there. So I got my primary, so everything looks good there. Here are some pointers on this when you're doing these. If you're in there doing a load boost test and you test phase A, when you finish with phase A, disconnect both of your connectors, right, before you move over to phase B. You don't want to be still connected on A and move your connections over before you're disconnected off B, okay? You could smoke some connectors there, okay? So don't do that, okay? Don't do that. Make sure you disconnect off of A phase, both of them, and then connect over onto B phase, okay? Make sure you disconnect off A before you connect to B. Don't leave one of them on A and then go over to B, okay? Another thing, earlier when I was doing this, you know, I open up my shunt like I always do. I open up my shunt and I connected everything up. Left my shunt open over here again, okay? Make sure you close your shunt in. You're going to open your shunt up. Then you're going to make your connections over here with your B phase off of the 6 millimeter. You're going to put your separator in there, right? You're going to shove your separator in, and then you're going to make your connections at top. Then make sure you connect back here again, okay? Now, one more thing discovered this morning. And this had happened to me out in the field a long time ago, and the professor, Ray, reminded me of this, that I had gotten out there. I usually, as a standard, I leave my probe set on 2 because when I first started, some crazy ones early on where I was having to use 2 sets of probes, both primary and secondary. I didn't use duckbills, had some little clamp-ons at some of the places I was first had to go test at, some really crazy 6S crazy stuff. So I was over there doing that. Well, here's what I had to do. I had to set my primary, with our equipment, I'm just telling you, it's opposite of what you would think logically. The primary probes are connected on probe set 2, okay? The secondaries are on probe set 1. You would think primary 1, secondary 2. It's the other way. So I had always just left my connector, right, on probe set 2. I leave it on my 3 series that way because it's already connected. On the 7 series where the cables are separate, though, in a separate case, I would always connect it still on 2. I leave it on 2 on my 3, which you don't disconnect. So the thing is, I always was on 2. If you leave it on probe set 2 and try and do a load boost, you're going to have problems. All right, I figured that out in the field a long time ago, just hadn't done one in forever, and I started having a couple of issues this morning, and Ray said, remember that time you called me up and you figured it out, you changed it from probe set 2 to probe set 1 and it worked. And I went, oh yeah. So Ray reminded me of when I was out in the field and I'd figured out, I moved it from probe set 2 to probe set 1, ran like a champ. When you're doing a load boost or you're doing a benchtop test, make sure you're connected into probe set 1. If you're connected into probe set 2, it's going to tell you it's not seeing any primary current. And it's going to give you, it's going to be just like if you show up at a site and they don't have enough load there. You know, in all the webinars we've been doing and you get Danger Will Robinson, it gives you the one error after the other error after the other error. That's what's going to happen if you're in probe set 2. If you leave it in probe set 2 and try and run that load boost, it's going to tell you polarity reversal, cross phase, low primary, low secondary, and you're going, this is just like, and sure enough, when you go to run the test, it's going to show 0 primary amps. It's not going to see the, because you got to be in probe set 1, okay? So now, all I would do now is I would take all of this, I would move this to B phase, I would run my drive cable through B phase, I would connect it exactly the same on B phase, and I would take this and move it over to B phase, right? I would take these connectors right here, I'd open up my shunt over here, right? Then I would open up my B phase, and I would do that same connections there with B phase, okay? I'd put in my separator, I'd go top and bottom with it, close back in my shunt again, and then I would just test B phase. So it's you're testing one phase at a time, okay? So now, let's look at a benchtop test. And a benchtop test is a little bit different, so you got to kind of think. I've got a CT sitting over here. I'll bring over here where it'll be easier to see here in just a second. But it's a different connection with this. So let's see here. We will go previous. Okay. So now I'm going to take my A phase, got the cable. Let's just get it connected up here first. Down to the dot side. Okay, where'd be better for us to be able to see this easier, JP? What do you think? Here? Can you see it on the other camera?
You put it right back where it was.
Let me put it back here?
Yeah.
Okay.
How's that?
Sure. That works for me. Okay. So now I'm doing a benchtop test. It's not in service, obviously. I've just got a CT sitting right here. I just grabbed one. So what I did was, I don't care which way you feed it through. Just remember, dot, I need the drive cable. So my drive cable right here, let me find it. My drive cable, that black cable, the drive cable, right, is driving and going right into, this is my drive cable right here. Going in here. So I've set up the black that's labeled the drive is coming in on the dot side of the CT that I'm sitting on top of the tabletop. So it's the drive end is coming into here. So I got drive coming in here, and then when I come out this back side of the CT, I go and connect that to the return end. So I've run my drive cable through here, okay? Then, here's where you got to think a little bit. Here's where it's a little bit different. Now I'm measuring, right? So remember, if I'm driving out of here, my current's coming out of the dot side right here on the secondary side as well, right? So my current is coming out of this dot side. So remember now I'm reading, and I've replaced my easy hooks with these alligator clips. But remember what we just said in the beginning, and we always say this about those duckbills, in the white and out the black. So when I'm measuring, my current is coming in the white and then back out the black, okay? So in this case, what a lot of people do out in the field when I'm out there with them and they go to do this for the first time, they're going to take that drive in and they're thinking drive, dot, boom, and they do it like that. They put that black on the dot. But remember, it's in the white, out the black. So right now, I'm using these to measure the secondary current right? I can't stick a duckbill in there, so I've replaced it with these 2 alligator clips, right? So to measure it, these 2 alligator clips are going to act just like a duckbill. In the white, out the black. So if I'm coming out of here, I need to connect my white here because the current comes out of there and goes in the white and then comes back out the black. So in this process, we're doing all this load boost and this benchtop stuff. One of the little tricky parts is, remember now I'm not using duckbills here. I'm using alligator clips or easy hooks to replace duckbills, okay? So you just got to remember, in the white, out the black, remember the flow, and remember the duckbill performs that operation of separation that you got to do with something else. You got to either get you a little separator, some cards and bend them and stick them in there, but you need to separate the top and the bottom, okay? The duckbill does it for you, but we're not using duckbills now, we're using alligator clips. So you have to find a way to perform that. You can see where I just used my little popsicle stick separators the way I did it, okay? Now when you're over here, now we got just a straight flow in and out, so all I'm doing is I'm just providing a primary current through that CT, and I want to measure the secondary side, and I'm going to compare my primary to my secondary, get a ratio test and say, hey, is that a good CT? And I can green tag it and stick it on the shelf, okay? So now in the white, out the black, so my flow looks good, I got my drive through there, so let's come over here, and now when I go over to my test right now, I'm going to do another instrument transformer test, right? Nope, I got to back out of here. This is what we call a component test. So I'm going to actually show you how to do this. I'm going to deselect the site, number 6. So I deselect the site, it takes me out to my main menu. And when I get out to my main menu, I don't have a site selected. It offers me the choice of component test. The component test is how you do the benchtop test. You have, if you think about it, a load boost test is associated with a site. I'm out at a site, right? A benchtop test is just a CT that's just sitting there in the shop that you just want to test it. So it's not associated with a site, so it goes to a different part of the menu, okay? I don't go to a menu that's associated with a site anymore, which you would see it up in the upper right-hand corner. I come back out to my main menu, which gives me this component test option, so I can just test something that's not associated with a site. Okay, this is just going to be a CT sitting on top of the bench. That's what we're doing right now. You can see it. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and choose component test, number 2. And now it gives me choices. These are different component tests that I can do. I can do creep tests on a meter. I can do transducer testing. These are some of the options of component testing with the 7 series. But the one that we want to do is number 3, a CT test, right? So you can see it's going right to the CT benchtop test, which is what we want to do. It's a 200 to 5, so I'm going to drive 20 amps through there. So I'm going to be at that 10% mark, which as ANSI tells us is the good mark. We say that a lot. I'm going to max burden. I can go all the way up to 4. I'm just going to go half an ohm, which we've been doing pretty consistently throughout our webinars. I'm just going to do the 1 turn again. So it's you're noticing it's similar to the screen we just saw earlier with the boost test, except this time it's not in service. So all I'm concerned with now is I just need to know, is it got a how much current I'm running through it, how much burden I'm putting on it, the number of turns, and then I just need to select out my CT here. You can enter them in. There's ways to go on CT Editor, and you can enter new ones in if it's not already on our very long list. There's a lot in there. Chances are it's in there, but if it's not, you can always add one to it. But I'm just going to pick one out here. So let's start down through here. I'm going to go 20. I'm going to drive 20 amps through here. Then I'm just going to hit my forward field, and I'm going to go in here to max burden. I'm just going to hit my drop down, and I'm going to pick half an ohm. Then I'm going to hit my forward field, and I'm 1 turn, so I'm going to leave that alone. Then when I get down here, like I said, I've got lots of choices. I'm going to choose, this is a 200. Just for this morning, I'm going to pick out a 200. And then the last part is important because, remember, these are all just on the shelf. You want to be able to sort them somehow. So enter in some sort of serial number so you can sort that CT, okay? And then that's how you'll find it from now on. So if I call this CT 1, 2, 3, 4, I'll be able to sort it as I'll look for number 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I'll be able to find it in my on my database in Meter Site Manager. Okay, so I'm going to just put 1, 2, 3, 4. That's why it is necessary you put something in there, because otherwise you won't be able to find it and sort it and look at your test data if you ever need to look at it. So I'm going to go start. the same mode. We're only using the one probe, so I always want to tell you to move it to that. It's going through the same. You remember seeing that a minute ago when we did the load boost test? And just for grins and giggles, when we finish, I'll swap those two and you'll see what will happen if you put your alligator clips, if you put the black one on the drive. I think y'all can already figure out what will happen. But okay, once it checks everything, then start test comes up, so you can start the test. So it did what we asked it to do. It put the 20 amps through there. It then measured on the secondary side and came out awful darn close to 5, didn't it? And we said, you know, so 0.5, excuse me. So it came awful close to a half, which is what we were looking for, right? Because we're saying, we always say 0.5 is that number that we look for. That's, if we don't have at least 0.5, it's going to be tough to test. So that all looks good. So we're right at 20. So we came at just right at 0.5. So we expected to be pretty good, and it ended up being awful darn good, right? 199.91 to the 200 to 5, okay? So we're going to swap them, and I'm going to hit retest. And remember, I was telling you, if you take that black one and put it on the dot instead of the other way around, and I'm thinking people out there are already figuring out what's going to happen, but we'll go ahead and hit retest just to show you. Remember, in the white, out the black. That's why we don't say, you'll hear some people say, it's always white up. Nah, I like to think more of it in the white, out the black. So I'm sure you guys, I'm wondering if anybody will send into the chat room. Does anybody know what's going to happen here when I've swapped those two? All right, looks like we're ready to test. Better hurry, running out of time, because the machine's going to tell you. Polarity reversal, right? It's the same old story. It'll be the same as swapping the wires, right? Same thing we talk about when they swap the wires on the secondary side. Well, wait, that's what we did, essentially, is we swapped the wires on the secondary side, right? It should be in the white, out the black, and instead I've got it swapped around now where it's supposed to be coming into the machine. It's actually where it's coming into the CT. So if you swap them, it'll give you polarity reversal, okay? So just remember, in the white, out the black. So for the benchtop test, I'm pushing the current out of the dot side secondary, so that's where my white should be, because that's where the current's coming into the machine. Okay, so I should take my white connection, my in should be on the dot side of the secondary, right? Because that's where my current's coming into the machine, so I can read that secondary current. All right? And as we can see, we've said this before when we showed polarity reversal, red fail, and we always look, why did it fail? It's 180 degrees out, okay? And that is because of the polarity reversal that we've got right there. So if we swap them and retest, should come out fine. So things to always be thinking about when you're doing a load boost test, okay? Do not, when you finish phase A, disconnect both and move to phase B, okay? Don't leave one of your connections connected and move over to phase B, okay? So disconnect both of them and then move everything, disconnect everything and then move everything over to phase B, okay? Think about the in and the out and the white and the black, okay? Remember, you're going to need some sort of a separator up here, okay? To separate, you've got to separate them if you're going to use this. If you're going to make your connections top and bottom, and I don't have a duck bill that I'm sticking in there, you're going to have either a popsicle stick or some cards or something, okay? Because now you're using alligator clips at top and bottom because you don't have your duckbills anymore. You're using the 6 mil cable, okay? And I'm going to use B phase of it to read. I'm going to use A phase to drive. So I'm going to take that 6 mil red or A phase and I'm going to connect my drive cable on either end. And I always want to make sure that the drive end of that cable is sticking out of the dot side of that CT because it's coming in on the drive. So when it comes in on that drive, it needs to come into the dot side. So I don't care which way you feed it through the CT, just end up with the drive end hanging out of the dot side of the CT and you'll be right, okay, because it's going to come in that dot side. Okay, and then remember over here on the bench top again, in the white, out the black, you're measuring now, you're not driving. Okay, and you don't have duckbills anymore, so you're going to have to use the alligator clips. So the white alligator clips the in, the black alligator clips the out. So you just see where it's coming out of the dot side of the secondary of that CT for a bench top, and that comes in the white into the kit, and then the black comes out of the return, completes the circuit for you. Okay? Hope this helps. Hope everybody got to see the connections really well. If you have any other questions, please holler at us. As you know, the next 3, we won't have a webinar, and then the 26th, we're going to wait. JP is going to send out a ballot for you to vote on what we look at next, and that is what we're going to do. Whatever we get the most votes for, that is going to be the show that we show on the 26th. It's going to be like one of those last man standings in pro football right now. Everybody's voting in. The most votes win. So whoever votes for the 26th, the most votes, that's what we're going to do, all right? Appreciate everybody. Thanks a lot for your time today. If there's any other requests like they did today, we can always interrupt the other stuff to do something like this. So some folks wanted to see this, so we did it. If any more requests, just holler at us. But otherwise, we will see y'all on the 26th. All right? Thanks. God bless. Be careful out there.